Hi everyone, welcome to Jazz Study Circle. So today we are going to discuss part 2 of social movements in our times. So already in the last class we have discussed the background of the lesson and civil rights and other movements of the 1960s, human rights movements in the USSR. So today we are going to discuss anti-nuclear and anti-war movements. So before entering into the lesson, I request you to, those who did not subscribe, I request you to subscribe and like the videos and forward to your friends and relatives. So not only the social classes, even I have uploaded handwriting classes and mind map and spoken English classes also uploading. So we shall enter into the topic now. Anti-nuclear and anti-war movements. In the 1970s and 80s, we saw a new kind of movement. So that movement was against of war. So the movement was against of war, especially against of Cold War. So already we knew that the entire world was witness to the horrors of nuclear bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. So the end of the World War II, we knew that Hiroshima and Nagasaki was attacked with the nuclear weapons by the USA, and it was affected to the most of the people in Japan. Most of the thousands of lakhs of people were died and lakhs of people were injured, and even area, the land and fertile land, everything was spoiled. Even now, present also those people are suffering because of that nuclear weapons blast. And if you see here, despite of this, leading superpowers, so we know this USA, USSR and Britain, France, these countries are known as superpowers. So despite of blast of nuclear weapons, even these superpowers started building or manufacturing the nuclear weapons. So already they had, and even they were manufacturing the more weapons to protect themselves from other countries. They were not ready to use, but if they go for war, they will use. So that was the situation, and it has created intensive of Cold War between the USA and USSR. These already we knew these two countries were superpowers after the 1945. From 1945 to 1990, between these two countries, the Cold War was continued. In a last previous lesson, we have discussed it. So Cold War is nothing but these countries will not fight straightly. Means only with the words and using the propaganda these countries will fight. Means these countries will provoke other countries to fight. And due to this also some millions of people were died. And there was because of this Cold War, even America's war also was there with the Vietnam. The entire world was constantly under the fear of the another world war. So these people were manufacturing the nuclear weapons and arsenals. Due to this, the other countries, the total entire world was in a fearful situation that these countries will go for again World War III. Already World War I was finished, World War II was finished, and due to the World War II there was a large effect. And now the World War III, if it happens, then what happens? Already these countries had nuclear weapons. If they use, it will be affected to the entire world, and it will be wiped out totally. The earth will be wiped out. Not only the mankind, even earth also will be wiped out. And the thousands of scientists and intellectuals. So because of this America's war with Vietnam, scientists and intellectuals, so across the world they campaigned for abolishing all nuclear weapons and insisted that USA and USSR come to an agreement and end the futile arms race. So these scientists and intellectuals across the world, not only the one or two countries, across the world, they campaigned and they came to an agreement that they should end the futile arms race. Futile arms race is nothing but these countries were competing each other with the manufacturing of the nuclear weapons as well as arsenals. So that should be ended and that should be reduced. So that was the situation. And in the Vietnam conflict, if you observe, America went for war with the Vietnam. Vietnam is a small country, but America is a large, powerful country. It has a largest weapons, and in the world. Even though this country went with the war with the Vietnam, small country. So due to this war, what happened in Vietnam, 8 lakhs to people, nearly 8 lakhs to 30 lakhs of Vietnamese, even military and civilians, all people. Approximately 8 to 30 lakhs people were died. And apart from this, the large number of people, Cambodians, neighbor countries of the Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos, these countries people also were died due to this war. And the total land was largely forested. In a Vietnam war, America have used control. These Vietnamese people followed the guerrilla warfare to control themselves. They attacked on America. They did not fear. America is the largest country, so we cannot compete with them. So that kind of fear they did not have at the time, and they went with the guerrilla warfare, guerrilla method. So to control them, to find the Vietnamese people, America have used napalm bombs. By using the napalm chemical bombs, they have largely forested. The total forest was spoiled by the America's people. And not only that, if you observe here, so America have come to they came to know that America's not only the American people, even American soldiers, and they all were unhappy because of USA's government behavior. So Vietnam is a small country, so they don't need to fight with them. So American soldiers thought, even American civilians also thought that there is no reason to fight with the Vietnam country. And most of the American soldiers, they returned to their own country, and even American soldiers' parents. So to attack on Vietnamese people, USA government, what they did here, so they were recruiting the small age people, like nothing but 21, 22 years of people started, and the youth people were recruited in this war. So when they were recruited in this war, so American civilians, they were worried about that, their children may die. So if you observe here, in this war, in Vietnam, nearly 8 lakhs to 30 lakhs Vietnamese were died, even civilians and as well as the military people and Cambodian neighbor countries also. But USA was not affected much. Only who was killed here in USA? Only the army soldiers were killed. So American civilians were not affected. So why? Because America is very far away from the Vietnam. They did not come to the USA country. Only the people who are fighting in Vietnam, that soldiers were died. Some thousands of people were died. And their parents were worried that the USA government is sending the small age people to the war. And these people, they started mass protest. American civilians, they started mass protest, and due to this, so this eventually forced the USA governments to end the war and leave the Vietnam in 1975. So finally in 1975, USA was ended the war and Vietnam, and they left from the Vietnam. And coming to the nuclear arms race. So after the Vietnam and USA war, the remaining countries were worried that. Why? Because USA is a superpower and it has attacked on a small country which is Vietnam. So the other countries also worried. Either USA or USSR, any country may come to the war with them. So to control them, then what happened? All the countries started manufacturing and they started competing to form the stockpile of nuclear arms. So when each and every country started manufacturing their own nuclear arms, the stockpile of nuclear arms, the world has become as unsafe. So we knew that already. We have seen the effect of the nuclear arms in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So if any country, if it going for the war and if they use the nuclear arms, the total earth will be wiped out. The total earth will be spoiled. So the total mankind will be died. So due to this, then what happened? Intellectuals and scientists, they came to an agreement. So whatever the panic situation we had now, so it should be removed and it should be reduced. So they should go for the negotiation with these superpowers, and not only the superpower countries, the countries whatever have the nuclear weapons, all countries should come to one agreement to reduce the nuclear arms. So as a result of this, so here these people, intellectuals and intellectuals and scientists, and the countries which are very small, those who are worried, they all went for the massive protest. For what purpose? To reduce the nuclear arms, to provide peace to the world. So finally it came to one conclusion that and USA and USSR, and USSR. So then what happened? These countries, the main competitors in the arms race, began talk to what is that? To cut down their nuclear arsenal strategic arms limitation talks. So first time they come to an agreement and they wanted to cut down their arsenals and nuclear weapons. So that first meeting was called as a SALT, Strategic Arms Limitation Talks. So strategic arms limitation talks. First time they discussed, but these talks were failed. First SALT talks were failed, but in 1991 what happened? Again they had one more agreement, Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, which is called as a START. So in 1991 they had one more agreement that is called as a Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. So it was succeeded. As per this, all the countries had negotiated and the largest and most complex arms control treaty in the history. So its final implementation in late 2001. So means whatever they had a agreement, whatever they had a negotiation, it was come to end in 2001. And the removed means the total removal of nearly 80% of the all strategic nuclear weapons then in existence. Means whatever they had, nearly 80% of the nuclear weapons were reduced. But even though from whatever the Cold War was happened between 1945 to 1990, if you observe, so there was this Cold War was ended with the wars with the Eastern Europe, Iraq and Afghanistan. These countries were affected between 1945 to 1919. So the Cold War also finished by the 1990, and because of this the USSR was dissolved and Russia was formed. Whatever the Eastern European countries were there, so they all removed from, means they became as independent and they formed their own wishing kind of government, and Russia was formed, means USSR was dissolved and it was formed into again 15 nations. But if you see the situation in the USSR, so there was a one blast. What was the blast? And then they had one nuclear plant actually. So they had one nuclear plant. That nuclear plant name was called as a Chernobyl. So this in a Chernobyl there was an accident. By accidentally this Chernobyl nuclear plant was blasted, and because of this number of people were died. Some thousands of people were died, and most of the people who were living nearby that, and the workers also died, and the people were also affected. So this is about anti-nuclear and anti-war movements. Once again I am repeating here. So this movement was against of the Cold War between the USA and USSR, and because of this Cold War, then what happened? The USA and USSR, they started manufacturing the nuclear weapons and arsenals. And not only that, the superpower countries which are supporting them, like Britain and France, they also started competing with them, and nuclear arms was formed, manufactured in a number, in a more quantity. So in the 1970s, if you observe, America went with the war with the Vietnam countries. So because of this war, what happened here? Nearly 8 lakhs to 30 lakhs of Vietnamese people were died, and most of the Cambodians and Laotians people also died. And this Vietnamese land was largely forested. Why? Because to end the guerrilla warfare, the Vietnamese people, they do not have the technology and they were unable to fight, compete with the American soldiers. But even though they were not worried about it, they were very confident and they were very brave, and they followed the guerrilla warfare. So to control them, whatever the guerrilla warfare they were fighting from the forest, so to control them, America wanted to deforest the total forest area. So for that purpose, they have used the napalm bombs with chemicals, orange and napalm bombs. And by seeing this, and most of the scientists and intellectuals, they came to an agreement that all the countries should end the futile arms race. But what happened here? By seeing America and Vietnam war, most of the other countries, they were worried to, they form their own nuclear arms. So in a war, what happened here? The USA, most of the Vietnamese people died, but in the USA countries, people were not affected. But the American soldier who went for war with Vietnam, so that soldiers were died. Thousands of soldiers were died, and most of the soldiers returned. Why they returned? They thought that there is no use of fighting with the Vietnam country. So Vietnamese people, the America, they do not have any use to fight with the Vietnam. There is no reason. There is no proper reason to fight with the Vietnamese people. So then they came to one conclusion and they started returning to their own country. And not only the soldiers, even their parents. Why? Because most of the youth people were recruited in a USA army to fight with the Vietnam, and their parents were worried. The innocent people who don't know the warfare, how to fight fight in a war. So that people were being sent to the Vietnam and they started fighting there, and they're dying there. So because of that, there was a mass protest started in a USA to end the war. Finally, in 1975, USA government has ended the war. So they returned from Vietnam to USA. The war was ended, but the remaining other countries were worried that the superpowers like USA and USSR, they're going for the war with the small countries also. To protect them, they should have the stockpile of nuclear arms. There was a competition between the two countries to manufacture the arsenals and nuclear arms. But the intellectuals and scientists and the people, they were feeling that the world is in unsafe position, and it should be the weapons and arsenals and nuclear arms should be reduced, and they should provide peace to the world. To talk with these superpowers countries, USA and USSR, they started campaigning and they brought together to talk. First talks were failed. First talks are called as a SALT, Strategic Arms Limitation Talks. These first talks were failed. But second talk in 1991, which is called as a START. In 1991, second talk was called as a START, which is the definition of this is Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. So this was finally succeeded, and this USA and USSR had agreed to reduce their arsenals and nuclear weapons. The 80% of the weapons were reduced by the 2001. But due to the Cold War, from which was happened between 1945 to 1990, so this Cold War was ended, but it was affected to the Eastern Europe, Iraq and Afghanistan countries. Why? Because these countries would suffer due to the war. And USSR also dissolved, and it has formed as a Russia. And the nations which was liberated from the USSR, they formed their own governments. And if you observe one incident of the USSR, there was a nuclear plant in Chernobyl. So that was accidentally blasted. Because of this, a number of workers were died. Our next topic is globalization, marginalized people and environmental movements. Once again, I am repeating, the topic is globalization, marginalized people and environmental movements. So economic and political changes happening worldwide since 1990s based on globalization and neoliberalism. So economical changes since 1990s happening based on what? Globalization and neoliberalism. So first, let you know what is the meaning of globalization. So globalization is nothing but it's a process of interaction or integration among the people, companies, or culture or countries. Integration and interaction between the countries, so that is called as a globalization. Nothing but it's connecting to the world. So due to the globalization, the world has become as a village, global village. So we can contact from one corner of the world to another corner of the world. So that is globalization. And neoliberalism. So what is the meaning of liberalism? Neo means a new. Liberalism is nothing but free, liberty. So it's due to the neoliberalism, free market have arisen in the world. Means one country's company can go to the other country and they can establish their own country there. Nothing but MNC system has established due to the neoliberalism. And due to the globalization and neoliberalism, then what happening? Is it useful or not? So it's useful, but how it is useful? To the rich people it is useful, but the people, because of globalization and neoliberalism, who will be affected means especially the country like in India, it will be impacted to the poor people, tribal people and poor farmers, landless workers, women and urban poor. So these all people will be affected, and nothing but unorganized sectors and industrial workers, these all people will be affected. And so most of these people are nothing but uneducated, and they are adequate in nutrition and health. So when these people lose their employment because of this globalization or neoliberalism, so these people will be affected. So that is what happened during the last few decades. If you observe, And the tribal and marginal farmers, they're also threatened by what? By the commercial farmers and mining corporations and dam projects. Due to the commercial farmers and mining corporations and dam projects, who will be affected here? The people, like a tribal people, will be affected, and farmers, marginal farmers, will be affected here. So due to the commercial farmers, what is happening? The people diverting from the food to cash production. And mining corporations is nothing but then what is happening here? Most of the mines and the natural resources are they are finding in a rural background, in a remote areas. So when they are finding, then what is happening? The government is attacking on those villages, and they are vacating all the people from that area. So when they are vacated, when they are displaced from that area, that people will lose their employment as well as their identity. So everything they will lose from there. Even if you observe the tribal people, they will have their own culture. So when these people will be vacated from that place, all the tribal will scattered from one place to another places. So when they are scattered into the different places, then what happens? Their culture will be lost. They lose their own culture. So that is what happening. Even dams, based on a name, to develop the agriculture system, to develop the industries, and the government is constructing number of dams. But because of this, what happening? The most of the forested area is deforested here, and the people who are living in a forest area are the people who are living in a rural area. So they all will be vacated from that. So these all people will be displaced from one place to another place. Based on what is that? For the facility of water or for the construction of dam, these people will be vacated from there. So then they will lose their employment, and they will lose their land, and they will lose their food and their culture. Everything will be lost from there. So that is what happening in this because of this globalization and neoliberalism. But slowly, then what is happening? There's such a process of development. So the government is based on a development. They are constructing. They are doing these all things. But the people, these all people will be affected. So when they are polluting the environment, the people have started their voice to protect the environment, to protect the culture, to protect the nature. So that all will be discussed in an environmental movements topic. So once again, I am repeating here: the globalization and marginalized people and environmental movements. Since 1990s, based on a globalization and new liberalism. So then most of the people of India, especially poor tribal people, poor farmers, landless workers, women, urban poor, and nothing but it's completely, the meaning is unorganized sector. So this unorganized sector people will be affected. They will be impacted here. They are losing their employment. And since a few decades, based on a commercial farmers and mining corporations, dam projects, these people also they are removing, they are vacating from their own places. These all the people. So then they are losing their identity, they're losing their own culture, and nature also will be spoiled. So to control them, the people have started, they have raised their voice based on environmental movements. So that is about globalization, marginalized people, and environmental movements.